Hi everyone, my name is Anthony with Preparation for Purpose. I am your career coach. Let's get back into it. We're going to do part two of the job interview best practices part two. All right, so let's get right into it. All right, so first question, should I bring a copy of my resume to the interview? And if so, how many? You should absolutely bring a copy of your resume depending on the format style of the interview. And this is something that you ask your recruiter or hiring manager before your interview. It's like, hey, what's the format of the interview? Is it going to be one-on-one? Going to be a panel? Is it a group interview? But you want to know what type of interview session it's going to be. Sometimes it's a panel. They'll tell you, oh, you're going to be interviewing with the recruiter, you're going to be interviewing with two supervisors and another department manager. So it's four people in total that you'll be interviewing with doing a first round and the second round. They may break off and it may just be two people in the next round or whatever. But ask the question of how, the format of the interview, so that way you come in prepared. So in the event that it may be somebody that may be brought into the interview that wasn't planned on originally because substitution had to happen. And so by having a couple of extra copies, ideally they should have it on a device. They may bring a laptop or they may print it out before they come into the interview session. But by having an extra copy shows that you're prepared for anything. And also say you have a copy for yourself, so that way one of the most important things is to help you be successful with your interview is being able to speak to what's on your resume. And so having it in hand, glancing over it, being able to speak to it, remembering dates, things like that, is very important, because if you start missing things, missing dates, giving numbers on stats that you can't really speak to, you're gonna come across like a liar or somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about, or are you a good fit for the company. So make sure that you're aware of what's on your resume. But definitely bring copies. I'll say at a minimum bring maybe 3 copies, because at a minimum, if there's 4 people in the interview, somebody can share, but most likely somebody should have had it at a minimum, but have at least 3 copies. It's always best practices. Next, how do I prepare questions to ask the interviewer? So this is going to be based on what you need. One of the things I highly suggest that you guys do before your interview, before you apply to any jobs actually, is to complete a self-reflection questionnaire. The self-reflection questionnaire is intended to help you identify what it is that you need from that employer. And so obviously pay, benefits, schedule, location, there's a lot of different things that you need both personally and professionally, but I want to really push forward on the professionally, what you need from that employer. And a lot of times that means training. What does the training look like for this position? What opportunities, if you know that you're looking to climb the corporate ladder, what opportunities look like? Is there a time limit before you can advance, apply out of your current role? So those are the questions you should be asking. Some of the questions you should be asking, but you should also ask insight from the person that's interviewing you. Obviously, they're an employee of that company, so you should ask them their take on it. What's the culture like? How long have you worked here? What do you enjoy most about it? What were some of the challenges that you faced being an employee here? Or what are some of the upcoming challenges that you can see this employer taking on in the next 5 years? But definitely ask questions that are giving insight into what you can expect by being an employer of said company. So those are the type of questions you want to have, but always at a minimum have 3 questions, a minimum of 3 questions you ask the interviewers. And typically you can always expound on something that they've said, or a question they may have asked you that you're like, hey, how did you think about this question? Or if you don't mind, can you answer this question from your perspective as an employee? So those are some tips about asking questions, but always ask questions after your interview. When they give you a chance to ask, hey, what question you have for us? Ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't ask 30 questions and don't say, okay, now I'm going to interview you guys. No, just ask, between 3 to 5 questions at a minimum and go from there. But the more questions you ask, the more intrigued that you are about the role. Because employers want people that want to be there. And so the better job that you do of asking insightful questions and perspective questions and fact searching questions, that shows them that you're interested and that you want to be there. But just know there's a fine line between stalker, obsessive, and just somebody truly interested and want to work there. All right, next question. What are red flags I should look for when researching a company? Financials, reputation. Are they being sued? Are they, the culture? Is it toxic? Are they being sued for, harassment cases? What is it like? Obviously we've had, this conversation about equal pay for women and men. So those are the type of things that you want to be on the lookout for. Again, court cases, whether it's, they're violating workers' compensation or people being sued for wrongful terminations. But all of those things you need to know their standing. If they're publicly traded, the stock, what's the stock price? Do they have a lot of debt? Are they going to, sell off shares and do a lot of stock buyback to, they're doing a stock reverse split and, trying to get their stock at a higher price. Like, what are they doing? Are they a viable, financially stable company? Because if they're not, then they're going to be laying off. They're going to be shutting down and possibly going bankrupt and possibly shutting doors or being bought out. And that may not leave opportunity for you to come on board. So do your due diligence when you're researching that company before. I highly suggest that you research the company before you apply to that company. All right, next question. How do I prepare myself if multiple interview rounds are scheduled? If I have multiple interview rounds scheduled, definitely asking feedback at the end of each round. So that way, if there's something that you need to improve upon, sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. But a lot of times, again, recruiters are paid to fill positions. And so the better relationship that you can foster with them to help you, give you insight, to help you get your foot in the door, you're going to kill two birds with one stone. One, you're going to help the recruiter fill their quota, and it's also going to help you get hired. So be mindful of that. But just be prepared. Sometimes you don't be afraid if they're asking you the same question over again. It will happen. Some people didn't like your response and ask you again, or they want more clarity on your response. So just be prepared and ask them. Like, again, when you're recruiting, initially when they set you up for the first interview, ask them, hey, what does the hiring process look like? And even at the end of your first round interview, ask them, hey, what are next steps? What is the next stage of the hiring process look like? So that way you get an idea. If they say, well, it's going to be 3 more interviews, you might say, well, how far apart and how soon are y'all looking to actually bring the person on? So ask those questions. That's definitely some of the questions you should ask during your interview session when they ask you what question you have. All right, next question. How can I practice my interview answers without sounding scripted? That's, again, I mentioned this in part 1, is you always want to practice interviewing. Practice, practice, practice. My favorite Allen Iverson quote. We talking about practice, not the game. Practice? Yes, we're talking about practice. Practice is so important that the more practice you get in, the more confident. It's like a secondhand. You know your resume. You know what you want to highlight. You know your go-to stories of your hero stories. When they ask you, tell me about a time when you messed up and you missed a deadline. You have those questions, those scenarios that you know you want to go off of, because, again, if you have a bad situation, have a story that's going to help you turn it into a positive situation. And that'll be I'll dive deeper into that later in future videos about doing the interview process. But I just want to stick to before the interview. So definitely practicing will help you. Record yourself. Listen to yourself, how you answer your questions. But practice, practice, practice will help you be more confident and not sound robotic or scripted. It'll just help you have more conversation. So that's the most important thing right there. An interview is a conversation. It is a get to know you session. So it's about them asking you questions, getting to know you, but you also have the opportunity to ask them questions. And even as you're having a conversation, you can still crack jokes. It's a conversation. It's not about somebody just reading a sheet of paper and just ask you, okay, what's your favorite color? Okay, how old are you? Okay, what year were you born? It's not like that. It's like, hey, so tell me about yourself. What do you know about this employer? And you tell them about the employer, and you tell them what drew you to the employer. Answer the question, but it's conversational. So don't be afraid of just talking to. It may be kind of nerve wracking if you're talking to multiple people. It's a panel style interview, but if it's a one-on-one interview session, they don't know you, you don't know them. It's just a conversation, and so let your personality shine. If you're funny, you like telling jokes, keep it professional, but be lighthearted. Have candid conversations. But know your audience. Know if they're not. You tell a joke and they not biting, then no more jokes. But if you feel like they're like into it, definitely, be yourself. Let your personality shine, because, again, the interview is to make sure that you are a good fit, that you fit the culture, that people want to work with you, that you have, you know how to communicate, and you know how to handle criticism. But you want to share that in your interview process. All right, next question. What should I do if I had a long gap in employment? Speak to it. Depending on what it was, you don't have to put it like in your work history, but you have a separate section called relevant experience, and you can kind of speak to it, or you can put in your work history and say, hey, job gap, and just talk about it. I was a caregiver. I took care of my ailing parent, or I had a sick child that I had to take leave and I didn't, circumstances where I need to take an extended period of time off that was longer than normal FMLA or whatever. Just be able to speak to it. If you say, hey, I took some time off and I went to school because things were changing in the industry and I needed to recertify and gain some more experience and more knowledge, say that. But just, briefly list the time frame that you were doing and what you were doing. You don't have to go into great length of like, hey, well, I went and got my master's degree, and it was I got a master's in business finance, but I went to and I got my doctoral, and I got it in account management, and I also got it in cybersecurity and this and that. Now you can add those things on your education, so it's not a big deal, but you can list it on your employment gap of like, hey, I attended this school during this time frame and got this degree. That was part of my work history because I took a time off to better myself. And that's, again, employers want to, if you're doing something that betters yourself, employers appreciate that and respect you more for that. And they're saying, well, if you're going to take the time on your own time to better yourself and continue to educate yourself, you're proving yourself to be an asset. So be mindful of that. Now, if it's on the other side, just for those that, hey, maybe you were incarcerated, maybe something happened where you got laid off and just the job economy was just terrible and you just weren't able to get another job in a timely manner. Speak to that. Just say, hey, you want to apply it, purpose it in a way that shows that you were developing yourself, that you're working on something, but don't just say, hey, I was looking for a job and the job market just wasn't solid enough for me to get a job. They're going to say something about you is damaged goods, so it's going to be a red flag. And so don't create a red flag if you don't have to. So be able to speak to it. And if it's something at a minimal, like just say, hey, I did some, I was laid off, and during that time I wanted to better myself, so I took some LinkedIn learning courses. These are, some of them are paid courses, some are free. You took some courses on Udemy, Khan's Academy, whatever it is. You did a master class in this certain topic, certain field, subject matter. But whatever it is, like, you can do those things so you're not lying. So as long as you're showing that you took some personal interest in yourself and did some personal development during that time frame, then that's a great way to cover that gap. All right, next question. How do I explain changing careers or industries in an interview? Just talk to them about it. Like, you know what? Like for me personally, I worked retail for almost 20 years, well, over 20 years, and I got into insurance. And the reason I want to change out of retail is because of the transition from brick and mortar stores to e-commerce. And so during my transition period, a lot of times we were advertising for our website in the store, paying customers in our store to shop online and order online for free shipping. And I feel like that's defeating the purpose of me trying to sell people merchandise in the store. So with that being said, I knew that there was going to be a decline in brick and mortar stores and more presence online. So that was helped me transition. So I had to speak to my transferable experiences into insurance. And so I talked about my management, leadership skills, management experience, of opening several locations, traveling and, hiring, firing, human resource aspects of the job that I had to do, coaching, training, all these different things. And so these are also skills that are needed in insurance. And so I was able to express my transferable skills into insurance, and I was able to get a job in insurance. And I had to get the licensing credentials to go along with it. But once I did that, the sky was the limit. So again, be able to speak to what you did at your other, the other industry, and what skills that you can bring to the new industry. And most importantly, as long as you do a good job of explaining how that you're an asset using those skills, you're going to be in there. So just confidently speak to your transferable skills and highlight it on your resume within the job descriptions of, like, when you do your resume, your bullet points about your work history should be things that are included in the job description, but it's not just, hey, I counted inventory or I balanced balance sheets. It should be, I balanced balance sheets with an accurate rate of 95%. I found, I was able to reduce expenses by 10% year over year. But you want to, from whatever the items were in the bullet points of the job description, you want to make sure that you're talking about what you did, even though you did it in a different industry, how those things that you did are transferable or relevant to the new industry. And so, for example, again, in my scenario, from going from retail to insurance, if I say, well, let's see here, responsible for recruiting, screening applications, interviewing, doing the onboarding process. So basically, they do the same thing in insurance that they do in retail. Another thing you might say, well, how do you handle escalated customers? We got somebody that's doing a refund, wants to return merchandise, and they're unhappy with the product. The same thing when you sell a policy, they want to cancel the policy because they're unhappy with the service they may have gotten, or it may not have been enough to meet their needs, and so now they want to cancel the policy. And so they're upset. They paid all this money, now they want a full refund. And same thing with merchandise. Once it's worn, you're not going to get full refund back on it. Same thing with insurance. When you're refunding, when you cancel a policy, you're going to pay for what you used. And so you're not going to get a full refund on the entire term of the policy. So being able to translate those experiences is going to be beneficial for you to help them understand that, hey, yeah, they get it. They understand what they will be doing in this role. They understand what's needed of them, the skill set that's needed, and they're showed that they're clearly competent and able to do it, and they were successful in doing it. And so being able to do that with confidence is what is really important. All right. Next, how can I make my elevator pitch sound natural and confident? It's practice. So most people don't realize your elevator pitch is on your resume, or should be. Your summary of experience or your objective statement or whatever you want to call it, that's at the top of your resume, right up under your name and your contact information, is that little brief few sentences that you have right there. That is your elevator pitch. And so just basically being able to recite it, understand what you're looking for. It should be short and concise, to the point. Hey, I'm an account manager looking for a role in a company that's growing, that's going to allow me to use my skills in a way that's going to be challenging and both rewarding for my growth, for my career. Yeah, that wasn't perfect, but something short and to the point. And that's what you want to do. You can use AI to help you create that, but just most importantly, you want to be able to speak that, because ultimately, when they say, tell me about yourself, that's really what they want to hear. They want to hear your elevator pitch about why you want to work here for this employer. And so being able to say, well, good example of that. Okay, so I'm currently a sales supervisor. I've been worked in retail for the past 20 years as a sales manager, and now working in insurance as a sales supervisor. And what I'm looking for is I want to grow my career, and I want to be an operations manager over the call center or whatever. So you can speak to what you want to do. Talk about where you are, where you were, and where you're looking to go. And so that's your elevator pitch. You can be as simple, short, and to the point as you can, but just that's what they want. When they say, tell me about yourself, they want that elevator pitch. Hey, I'm an account manager. I've been with Coca-Cola for 5+ years. I'm looking to be a senior account manager, and I want to continue to grow my career and help the company with utilizing the skills that I've gained over the years, and also pick up some new skills along the way. Great, perfect. So why Coca-Cola or why Pepsi? Why, so that's the interview process. Just be a conversation about why you're here and what you're looking to do while you're here. All right, next question. How do I prepare for a panel interview with multiple people? That one's a little bit more challenging. Again, this is going to take you to practice. Practice is going to be the biggest thing you can do. Having family or friends that can help you to basically create the panel for you. And then just going through, having some prepared questions that they answer, they ask of you, and then just practicing. I would say watch YouTube videos. You can watch YouTube videos on so many things now, just to kind of get an example of how to better practice for preparing for the panel interview. One of the things I would say is be prepared who you're speaking to, give eye contact, but also don't leave the other people out of the interview. You want to look around and say, as you're answering, like the person answered your question, that's who you want to give your full attention to. But as you're giving your answer, you want to kind of give eye contact to the others because you're speaking to all of them. And so it's a little different with eye contact, but also just knowing who you're speaking to. Again, you're speaking to multiple people, and so they're listening to what you're telling to one person, and then somebody else may chime in. So it's a conversation. It's basically a group conversation. It's where one person will ask you a question, and you answer, and then somebody else will say, hey, just following up to that, tell me about this, or could you speak a little bit further into when you said that you were responsible for account management over $100 million inventory? What does that look like? How did you maintain? How did you delegate responsibilities? Talk to me about your processes and how efficient were you at that? Talk to me about some of your shrink numbers. What was your profit and loss ratios and things like that. So it's so many different things that it's a conversation with more people. So it's similar to you being at a dinner. And somebody's telling you about their day, and then somebody else is telling you about their day. You may ask questions. Well, hey, how did you do in your test? Oh, I got an A+. Great. How did you get the A+? Well, I studied for it. And then somebody else may say, well, hey, I'm going to have that same teacher next year what advice do you have for me? It's just a constant conversation going around a dinner table. So that panel interview is very similar to that as having a meal at the dinner table, just being able to interact with everybody at the table and not leaving anyone left out. So that's the best advice, is not leaving anyone left out, because they want to make sure that in a group situation that you're able to do the same for your coworkers and your teammates. All right, next question. How do I prepare for a video interview when I don't have the best lighting or background? You have to be creative. Again, you want to make sure that you're mindful. If you have to set up your cell phone light to give you additional lighting, if you have to open windows, open blinds, make sure that the environment is beforehand set up for your best success, because you don't want to look like you're a vampire because your room is so dark. So make sure you have adequate lighting, open blinds, open windows, open curtains if you have to. The other thing is just arrive early, so that way you can kind of test, because you're able to see yourself and see your background and what that looks like. You have to set a virtual background. By all means, if you have the opportunity to do so, you should do so, especially if you know your background is not conducive to what you feel they will need to see. The other thing too is be aware of your background. If you got, if you're not the cleanest person or the neatest person, don't have a bunch of clutter in the background. If you got dirty clothes or clothes laying all around you on the couch and it's all within the scene of your picture of your video, tidy up. Make sure that your background is clean and spotless, because they want to make sure that what they're looking for, if your background is all cluttered up and stuff, your desk is going to be all cluttered up. You're going to be unorganized and hard to get stuff from you in a timely manner, that you're probably going to miss deadlines just from that. Remember how they say a picture's worth 1,000 words? Your background is worth 1,000 words. They're going to say, well, how neat are you? How clean are you? If you're lighting, oh, they're in the dark. Maybe they don't pay the light bill. Maybe the power's out. All these different things. You're giving them so many, like the key with the wide imagination. You're giving the recruiter with the wide imagination to come up with so many scenarios of why they shouldn't hire you. So be mindful of your background in your video. All right, guys. I hope that's a lot of information. I hope that gives you good insights about what to do before your interview. Again, if you have more questions you'd like to ask, definitely put those in the comment section down below. Definitely like and subscribe to this video if it benefits you, it helps you. If you know somebody that will benefit from it, definitely share and send it to them so that way they can see it. I will definitely keep more videos like this going with Q&A sessions. I am also your career coach, so if you need help with your job search, with mock interviewing, with networking, with salary negotiations, resume customization, let me know. I'll be more than happy. I offer free consultation. I do offer paid services, but I'm also available to offer free questions. So definitely, if you need any assistance, definitely reach out to preparationwithpurpose.com. Again, I have more videos available on my YouTube channel. I hope that you like them. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.